iCarly was one of the biggest Nickelodeon sitcoms of the late 2000s, and whether you loved it or hated it, you have to admit, it was weird.
Put your finger in his ear.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
And this is the Kayla nut, named after Princess Kayla Dupree, who became famous for throwing nuts at poor people.
No, don't throw it. Don't.
I cannot even begin to explain how weird this show was, and Spencer Shea was one of its weirdest characters. In the show, Spencer's main character trait was his ability to sculpt, paint, draw, and mold pretty much any material you could think of into some bizarre creation. This made him a valuable ally in the production of props for Carly's web show, but in terms of his own artistic success, the show made him go through many ups and downs. In this video, I'll be going through them and taking into account other factors to determine the answer to this question. Was Spencer really a good artist? Before we begin, I just want to make a quick comment on the show itself. I hate to admit it, but iCarly was actually fairly accurate with how it presented internet culture. When I was a much younger lad, I thought that their web show seemed too loud and aimless to realistically be popular. But boy was I wrong. Now I can confidently say that their web show had 10 times more substance and entertainment value than the average Paul Brothers vlog.
Hey, I'm making a video! I'm making a video! Shut up!
Hell, remember the episode where they staged a fake boxing match just so they could increase each other's clout? Does that sound familiar to anyone? iCarly was actually right on the money in a lot of places, and that both disappoints and fascinates me. Now, since I seriously doubt that Jerry Trainor had much to do with the production of these props, I think it would only be fair to at least mention some of the prop designers who did. Now, I searched as far as I could for information regarding this because I was genuinely curious, and with the help of Tumblr user A Perfect Day for whatever that is, I was given a list of the two main prop designers listed on IMDb, and the episodes they worked on. Unfortunately, most people in the art department had very short profiles, and there wasn't much else to see besides their names, but here they are. Like in my Squidward video, I think it'd be a good idea to start off with technical ability, and I think it's safe to say that Spencer has plenty of skill in multiple materials. In the entirety of the show, Spencer produced several dozen individual art projects, all with a variety of materials. Anything from plastic bottles, to yo-yos, to butter, to pencils, just pretty much anything and everything, and they're usually structurally stable. Spencer experiences many ups and downs in his career throughout the series. It's safe to say that he's definitely not famous, or as Sam puts it,
there's an art gallery downtown that wants to showcase new works by great unknown artists.
Awesome, you're a great artist. And you're definitely unknown.
but he peaks every now and then, such as in the episode I Heart Art. In this episode, Carly invites a more accomplished artist, Harry Joyner, who is noted as an inspiration for Spencer, to review his sculptures. Initially, he calls them amateur. Now I can see why he seems to think this. At first, the sculptures appear kind of gimmicky, without much substance. Like, yeah, it's a bunch of yo-yos cobbled together and an elephant head on a unicycle. It appears as though there isn't much subtle design that goes into them and more just flashy nonsense. But later, Joyner says he said those things because he was jealous, because they're better than anything he's done in a long time. I think that's a curious set of words. When Carly meets Joyner in the process of his newest art project, he's barking orders at people, riding around lazily on a Segway, and overall, he seems kind of bitter. I have a theory that Joyner saw a kind of youthful potential when he viewed the sculptures, a drive and innocence that he had lost for a long time, and that's why he felt jealous. I think the merit of Spencer's artwork comes from the colorful optimism and silliness of the sculptures that is uncommon in an art world filled with people constantly trying to ascribe deeper meaning to their work. However, there were also instances of negative reviews, like in the episode I Enrage Gibby, where an art critic gives a negative review of Spencer's work in a newspaper, which prompts Spencer to retaliate in the weirdest way possible, by gathering newspapers with that review and shredding them. But once the newspaper accidentally publishes a false obituary for Spencer, he starts selling sculptures for a lot more money. So we know that at least in death, Spencer could be more successful. However, it's worth noting that if he can make enough money to stay in a large apartment and provide for another family member, he's doing a lot better financially than most unknown artists. However, how much of this is being paid for by Carly's father, who's on tour in a US submarine, or other family members, or possible ad revenue from Carly's web show, is hard to say. In a later episode, I Hire an Idiot, Spencer takes his art to a museum in a section titled Traditional Postmodernists, which seems like a bit of an oxymoron. Going into what counts as postmodern specifically would take way too long a chunk of this video to explain, so I'll just say it's pretty much just weird art that tries its absolute best not to follow art norms. So I think Spencer's sculptures would fit in this category, so he at least knows the appropriate place to take them. And he seems to be known by the curator, but as the curator says,
to get a sculpture in here, you have to fill out an application, have it examined and approved by the Board of Curators, get authorization from the...
How long does all that take?
3, maybe 4 months.
No. Please, just let me leave it here for a few days.
I can't.
So it seems that Spencer is rejected not because of the quality of his work, but his unwillingness to go through all the paperwork and patience to get his sculptures in a place such as a museum. One of Spencer's most famous gags is that he can catch nearly anything on fire, so much so that the Seattle Fire Department is aware of him. Very aware. And an important thing to note, as the Icarly wiki tells us, is that things he catches on fire are usually made up of materials that are non-flammable at room temperature. So what does this tell us? Well, it suggests that Spencer might have an untapped wealth of supernatural powers, but very little agency over those powers. There is even more evidence of this as shown by his, well, let's just say, unusual effects on women. For example, in the episode I Have a Lovesick Teacher, where he charms Carly's teacher into dating, and boy does she like Spencer.
You want me to stop?
No! It hurts too good!
Even when Spencer doesn't like her back, because of her downright psychopathic behavior.
I don't know. I think, maybe I was...
Love me?
Or the episode I Do, where they go to a wedding and the bride falls in love with Spencer within like 10 minutes. Keep in mind on the very day she's supposed to get married to someone else. Or back to the museum episode where this happens.
I told you specifically that you weren't...
Piedra!
Normally, Spencer would be charged with sexual assault, but the opposite happens.
I apologize. I had to do that.
Just do it again.
Yeah.
Yes, it seems Spencer has an uncontrollable aura that gives access to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. But what does this tell us about his art? Well, Spencer's talents in multiple mediums, his speed, and his technological marvels might be because he's managed to channel a part of his powers into a talent that he does have agency over. But in order to counteract this, the powers also destroy what has been made with them. His powers aid in his creations, but they also aid in their destruction. And oh boy do they destroy. In fact, sometimes they aren't just treated like a silly gag. In the beginning of the 4th season, he burns down Carly's room with a gummy bear lamp. Spencer's sculptures are a perfect reflection of his wacky and energetic nature. There's nothing pretentious about them. They could have no meaning at all, or they could have the most profound meaning of all time. Look, you could stare at a Rothko and ponder about the relationship between colors and the majesty of the void for a few hours, but thinking deeply about Mary Sniffmas is going to keep you up all night. His sculptures are so unapologetically silly that even in such a bizarre place as the art world, they would probably still be unique. So does this make him a good artist? Well, that kind of depends on what you consider a good artist to be. Whether it's the quality of their work, the amount of recognition for their work, their financial success, or something else. But what I will say is this. Spencer has the talent and the ideas to succeed, but his unwillingness to go through the professional work required to advertise and promote his art is a shortcoming. He nearly loses custody over Carly because of his irresponsible behavior, and by that, I mean nearly impaling her head with a hammer. Spencer is truly chaos incarnate, but he gets that custody returned when he demonstrates control and responsibility in other areas. Perhaps his seemingly supernatural powers and astounding talent are a metaphor for the great potential he possesses, But without proper control, it all comes burning down.